So the first thing I want to talk about is the golf course in the tournament. So we have two golf courses. We have Torrey Pines South and Torrey Pines North. All golfers will play each one of these golf courses before the cut. It is a 36-hole cut, unlike last week at the American Express where we had a 54-hole cut. This is 36. So they will play the two golf courses. Again, they'll play the North and the South. Now, the South is 70. It's a par 72, 7,600 yards. The North is a par 72, 7,200 yards. And this was much shorter prior to last year, 2 years ago, where they made a renovation to lengthen the course. I think they added like 200 yards to it. So it used to play much shorter and much easier. The North course will play significantly easier than the South course, just automatically. It's like, I don't think it's ever close to the North performing worse than the South, or the South, I should say, performing better than the North. So keep that in mind. And that makes an interesting point of decision making, because weather is coming in, and it is, I think it's currently forecasted that Friday is going to be a bit more windy than Thursday, and it could be vice versa. But this is an interesting thing to consider. The North course playing easier. It is my belief, and this doesn't apply to everybody. I am a competitive golfer. I think it's easier. Well, I should say this. My mindset when I play a golf course or a golf tournament is, if there was a 2-course rotation like this, I'd rather play the harder course during the harder conditions, and I'd rather play the easier course during the easier conditions, primarily because scoring is still going to be tough at the South course no matter what, or at the harder course, I should say, that I'm still most likely going to be forced to use, basically my scrambling and short game to provide me pars. Like, birdies will probably be difficult at the South course regardless. So I would still just want to scramble and do my best to make par at the hard course in hard conditions. So I don't think there's much of a difference when it comes to making birdies at the South course. It's just going to be tough regardless. Now, the North course, when the conditions are more benign, scoring is much easier. You have POA greens on the South course, and you've got bent grass greens on the North course. So North course, if the weather is, like I said, benign, where there's really no weather at all to worry about, these greens are just going to get eaten up by these players. They're going to be very receptive. They're going to be easier to shoot at pins. Of course, if the wind picks up, it's going to be much more challenging to shoot for the pins. So again, I'd rather play the easier course when the weather is the easiest. That doesn't apply to everyone. Not all golfers are like that, by the way. They actually would have it the inverse, where they would rather play the easier course on the hard weather day and the hard course on the easier weather day. I personally, when it comes to DraftKings scoring, I think you make more birdies at the North course when the weather, I just think you'll make more birdies, period, when the North course is playing the easiest with weather. So that's just my personal take. Take it or leave it. It's up to you, but that's how I feel about that. So those are your golf courses. The tournament is 156 players. I believe it's another Pro-Am. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I didn't even look into it, but a Pro-Am is still a Pro-Am. It's, people are going to live with the same kind of playing conditions they had to last week when it comes to group formation. So I'm assuming we're going to have groups of 2 like we did last week, and we'll go over the marquee tee times, because it is actually worth pointing out, because they did perform pretty well last week. And again, I'll review that here coming up shortly. So keep all of that in mind. And teams of 2, I think we can use. Last week I was kind of skeptical until I saw the marquee tee times after the fact, and I was like, oh yeah, I should probably use marquee tee times. So I'll also be doing that in the strategy video this week, is going over marquee tee times. The tee times already came out, which I didn't have time to update to do this video in time, so I'm skipping that and just leaving it till tomorrow like I usually do. But yeah, keep that in mind. Again, it's a 36-hole cut, and it's all that you really have to take into consideration. It's similar strength of field from last week. I think last week it was a bit, how would you term that? How would you phrase that? a bit harder, a bit stronger. That's what it is. Last week is a bit stronger than this week. It's still in the 300s. Last week I think it was like 3. Actually, let's take a look. I forgot that I even had this up. We take a look at 2023, and our strength of field was 400. Okay, so there's 400 points. And this week we have 319, so close to 320. So a little weaker this week than it was last week, which is crazy. Farmers Insurance Open, you would imagine higher name golf courses are coming to this event, but these are the old strength of field points, that this old strength of field calculation, I should say, when the point totals were over 12. Because right now it's like you get a course or a tournament rating of like 12, 11, 10. I'm using the full numbers that they used before, so I'm usually within 7 points of the calculation. I don't have like the bonus points that usually gets added, because I don't remember how that's calculated. So anyways, these are basically your raw strength of field points. So take that for what it's worth. If you have some way of reviewing weaker strength of field tournaments versus stronger ones, maybe you can find a baseline versus, you know, what they perform at weaker ones, and try to figure out who really plays better in these types of events. But I think it's golfer versus golf course, and this is a hard golf course. The Torrey Pines South course is a hard golf course, so that's kind of what I would really be basing a lot of my analysis on this week, and selecting players from. So keep that in mind. And that, I think, wraps up the golf course and tournament information.